to the What to Do When podcast. I'm here with amazing Kelsey, and we're back. We're back with more problems. We're back with more problems because we've all got them. We've all got this shit going on, and we're here. We're ready to chat about it. We're ready to figure it out here with you. And I think we both, if I can speak on behalf of you, Kelsey, just want to say a massive thank you to all of you out there listening. It is truly what keeps the show going, and it means so much to hear your feedback, to get your messages. And I have some really amazing fans that have been there for such a long time and who are just the number ones, just the people who are always in my DMs telling me what they loved about it. They're breaking it down. And I just really want to thank each of those people because they are, you guys make it, man. And you guys make the doing this work and getting to actually sit down and talk about some of the stuff that when I was growing up, we never fucking spoke about. And so I had no idea. And I thought, something's wrong with me. I'm an idiot. Nobody else goes through this. I'm so broken. And now it's the pleasure that we have to get here and sit here and talk about all the problems that we all have and that we all face and just normalize them and normalize the experience of trying to unlearn some of this stuff. So big thank you from the bottom of my heart, and I'm sure from the bottom of Kelsey's heart as well. We love having Kelsey here, and huge favor to ask of you, if you haven't already, make sure you hit that little bell icon to subscribe so you don't miss an episode of the show. It is what's going to help us grow in terms of growing the show and just getting it out to more people and being able to create even more content, more free content, which is really cool. So big thank you to you guys for sharing, sending messages. I see all of them. I appreciate all of them, and I appreciate you. So thank you. Now, for today's problem, what do I do? What do I do? Today we're answering what to do when you want to stop people pleasing. And Kelsey and I, we chatted about this, and our people pleasing actually looks a little bit different. And I think that's a big misconception about people pleasing, is that it's always, often what I was told is it's always about self-worth. And not everything is. It's often about other things as well, and it can come from different root causes. So today we're going to dive into what to do when you want to stop people pleasing, as well as what it can look like, where it might stem from, and what strategies, reminders, perspective changes, exercises, and things that you need to focus on to stop people pleasing or to people please less and to please yourself more, because you are what really matters, and people pleasing comes at a cost to you, not anyone else, but to you. Kelsey, can we start off? Can you give us what your definition of people pleasing is?
Yes, for sure. Firstly, hello everyone. And secondly, I guess people pleasing for me looks like a lot of different things. I think at its root, it stems from a sense of perfectionism and wanting to be perfect, wanting to be liked, not feeling good enough. So feeling like I need to make everyone else happy and put their needs above my own. And also avoiding having to talk about me, avoiding having to open up, avoiding having to be vulnerable, which would make sense as I have a tendency to be more avoidant. And so this behavior probably developed as a way to meet those core wounds of wanting to be perfect and also not wanting anyone to notice me.
I get that. I so get that. And it's your brain has decided very early on in your life that you have to be perfect. And to be perfect, you need to be liked, right? You need to be agreeable, you need to be a good girl, you need to be approved of. People need to like you. And I think that's probably one of the biggest things that most people pleasers have in common is that drive that I need to be liked, I need to belong, I need to fit in. And I know for me, for sure, people pleasing has always been the road that I know how to go down to be liked and to get approval, to feel like I remember at one of my first big girl corporate job, I was such a people pleaser. It was ridiculous. And a bunch of these old creepy men were people that I people pleased to the point that one of them used to call me Sunshine. And it wasn't because of my sunshiny personality. It was because I was just people pleasing, I was just being whatever the fuck I thought that they wanted me to be, and, letting all the fucking weird comments slide and laughing at their really crude jokes, And it's so interesting, I think, to see that people pleasing is a symptom of a much deeper wound, like you talked about. So that wound for you, Kelsey, what was people pleasing a symptom of? Like, it took you, where did it take you?
I think, well, where it started was a combination of having a parent who was overly critical of how I did things. So my dad has a very, very clear idea of like very black and white about what's right and wrong. And so that was really imprinted upon me. There is a like significant like right way to do things and wrong way to do things. And so I was always afraid of doing the wrong thing, always trying to be perfect, because at a young age, all you want is like your parents' approval. And you like, it's natural for everyone to just like vie for that because they're the main person in your life. And so it was this that kind of like really started the people pleasing thing of like, let me make my parents happy. Like, how can I be better? How can I do this right? Then combining with getting bullied really badly in middle school about my like appearance and like really feeling unliked, but wanting to be liked. And so then I developed this tendency of, well, if I can make everyone else happy, then no one's going to be mean to me. No one's going to hurt me. No one's going to make fun of me because everyone likes me. And this is, I think we've spoken about it in one of the past episodes, like a way you abandon yourself, because then it means that everyone else's needs become more important than your own. And you are just always putting other people before yourself, no matter what. And this is a really dangerous habit to create or to perpetuate, because especially at a young age when all you want to do is be liked and you have this tendency to put everyone else above you, you're totally just like giving yourself away every single time you say yes to these things that you don't actually want to do. And this is kind of when you start to lose a sense of self, lose a sense of your identity, because you've spent your whole life focusing on making other people happy that you don't actually know what you want and you don't know what you need, because all you've done is just say yes time and time again to other people. And this is exactly what happened to me, was that I had no idea who I was. I was very like social, very extroverted, always saying yes, always like I would get really, really anxious if I upset people because I really wanted to be liked. It was probably one of the most triggering things for me, is feeling like I've done something to upset someone, regardless of whether I think I made a mistake or not, regardless of whether I thought it was a wrong decision. If I thought someone was mad at me, it would like keep me up at night. I'd get full panic attacks. Like, it was really intense. And it looked like me just like burning the candle at both ends of like pushing myself at work, like saying yes to shifts, like working hectic hours, saying yes to everything social. I had really bad FOMO. I hated like missing out on things. Like also even buying clothes that other people were wearing, like trying to like, I was always trying to emulate other people's styles, like always trying to be other people, because I didn't know who the fuck I was. And I just wanted to be liked. I wanted to fit in. And so literally everything I did was me looking at someone else being like, well, they're doing that. I kind of want them to like me, or I want to be like them. So let me do that too.
Damn, yes. And you're right. So people pleasing as a coping mechanism. So people pleasing is a way to cope with pain, right? Fears, wounds, worries. But people pleasing leads us to, one, not knowing who the fuck you are, right? Because you just say yes to everything. And for me, I also had a massive tendency to mirror and chameleon. So no matter who I was around, what group of people I was around, I was their yes girl, like I was them. I copied them. I mirrored them. And it just in order to fit in, to be liked, to feel like I was approved of and part of the gang, and to feel sort of successful, especially in a corporate environment as well, to feel like one of them and that I was liked and valued. But it also leads you point out such a good point there, to burnout. Because you can only say yes so fucking much before you realize, oh my God, I'm only one human being and now I have nothing left for me and I'm just pouring from an empty cup over and over and over again. And then what happens for so many people pleasers that I've spoken to, including myself, I'm curious to see if it's happened for you too. Did your people pleasing and your yes girling, did it ever get to a point where you started to resent it? You started to resent other people and be almost annoyed that you had said yes to go and help someone out, or that you had to go do something?
Yeah, it got to a point where I went through like a whole like emotional almost like breakdown, and I like really evaluated a lot of things in my life and realized they weren't serving me. And a big part of that was just my whole life I had built in Queenstown. I started to resent everything about it. And I had like really good friends, even friends that weren't associated with like drinking or the person I used to be, like friends that would have willingly stayed with me as I went through this transition to become a different person essentially. And I literally just shut everyone out for a whole year. I stopped going to things, like I stopped like being social. I stopped responding to texts. I just shut everyone out because I was so fucking done with everything that I was like, I don't actually want any part of this life to come with me anymore. Like I burned every bridge nearly, like lost a lot of friends, but I had no energy for it. I just, the thought of even going to hang out with those people, it was just almost like too much because I just spent all my energy like for years and years and years. And then I didn't even like who I was. And so being around those people almost made me be like, oh, I don't want to be this person anymore. So I don't want to be around these people anymore because I don't like this version of me. Let me just go into my cave and now never come out.
I feel that. And it's such a good point that I think a lot of people pleasers get to when they get to being so burnt out that it's costing them. Like it's genuinely, like they might get sick, they might experience physical symptoms, they might not have the energy to do things anymore. And you build this identity around the people pleasing. And I remember for me, I built this identity around thinking that I was a really like good person because I always said yes, tried to help out wherever I could, like, you know, I helped people to feel good. I was easy to be around. People liked that. And so as soon as I started to unlearn people pleasing, because people pleasing is a learned behavior, we see it, like I definitely saw it in my life. I saw it in my mum. I saw it in the people around us. I saw people pleasing others to get the smiles and to get the nods and to get, you know, things that, to just make life easy. You know, it felt like it made life easier to be a people pleaser and just not shake or rock the boat. But it gets to this stage where you just can't do it anymore. And when you start then taking it back, when you start saying no or looking after yourself or trying to set a fucking boundary. Heck, I remember even learning the word boundary and going, Jesus Christ, what is this? I'm never going to be able to do this. This is terrifying. And being like, people will hate me. No one will love me anymore. No one will invite me to things, you know? And as soon as I started actually sort of going, actually, maybe I don't want to drink at this party, or actually, maybe I don't want to go to this thing, or actually, maybe I don't want to like fucking chuckle at your stupid joke anymore that's making me uncomfortable. You know, like as soon as I started trying to stop those things, biggest thing that got in my way and dragged that process out, wonder if it's similar for you, was I felt like a bad person. And you touched on that fear and that anxiety of when somebody was upset with you. And that was huge for me. Like, even to this day, if somebody is angry at me, my inner people pleaser, that part of me that is part of my inner child, it still gets triggered and it still goes, oh my fucking God, I did something so bad. Like, oh, they hate me. I'm a terrible person. Oh my God. Like, and it can, if I let it take over, thankfully now I've got strategies and a support system in place within myself to not let it fully take over and go into a full spiral, but a half spiral, 100% can happen from time to time. We'll call it a mini spiral, right? When that happens, it literally feels like the world is ending. It feels like the most terrible thing ever is happening. And it's that constant fear of like, I've done something wrong and somebody's angry at me, you know? And it blows my mind how much that can control us. And then I look to other people who don't struggle with people pleasing at all. Like I look to those strong, confident women who have been called probably angry or aggressive in the past, but really they're actually just fucking women saying what they want. I remember looking at them as a kid and being like, oh, disgusting. I'd never want to be like them, you know? And now I like look at them. I remember a couple of years ago, I had a coach who I really admired who had this energy about her. And I was just in such deep admiration, but I was also really triggered by it at the same time. Have you shared in that, Kels?
Yeah, definitely. It's really hard when you see someone that's like where you want to be, but even in recognizing that they're somewhere that you want to be almost acknowledges the fact that you don't like where you are at the moment. And that is like pretty shame inducing, because you're like, oh, well, there's something here in my life that I'm like ashamed of or don't like. I definitely get that. What I do want to ask you though is like, where do you think this behavior is learned from? Because I learned it from like my parents. My mom was like quite submissive as well, always saying yes, never once like voices what's on her mind or what she wants to do. And so she was the like example of people pleasing, whereas my dad was this critical parent who makes me think that I need to be like better or I'm not good enough. And that's where I can see I've learned it from. What about you though? Because I feel like our experiences are a bit different with this.
Yeah, for me, people pleasing has always been about fitting in and belonging. And I think I felt like an outsider from a very young age. You know, we moved from, it was always just been me and my mum, and we moved from Scotland to New Zealand at the age of 3. I looked different, I sounded different, you know, and it was always like I was the most anxious kid ever. Like I vomited all the time because I was so anxious. And I remember just clinging to my mum's leg all the time because I was so scared. And again, I think it was probably that uprooting at such a young age and stage in development that kind of shook the foundation that I had of like safety and security. And for someone who's scared and feels like an outsider, like belonging is one of our core human needs. We need to feel like we belong, and we will abandon our sense of authenticity, our sense of uniqueness and what's important to us. We will abandon that time and time again to meet that need of belonging. And that is a hard pill to swallow, because when you sit there and just think about it, being like, oh, I wouldn't choose belonging and fitting in over being who I am. Like, of course I'm going to be who I am. But put yourself in that scenario where you don't know anyone, or you move to a new place, or you start a new job, or you walk into a party where you don't know anyone. You know, put yourself in that situation, and your fight, flight, fawn reflex, it's going to kick in. Your nervous system is going to get activated because you're surrounded by people that you're not part of. You know, your instincts are going to kick in. And we have to remember that these instincts exist to keep us safe and to keep us surviving. You know, it's a survival instinct that we all have to belong and to fit in. And people pleasing is such a quick road to gain approval from other people and to fit in and to belong. So I think that's where it really stems from for me. We then also moved to Australia at the age of 9. So I had 2 moves, and then we came back a year later. So I had 2 big moves at a young age, well, technically 3, where it felt like my entire foundation and like family and support system around me, my tribe essentially, right, where that was gone. And I had to go into new places. And as a kid, you're just going to emulate what you see everyone else doing. You're going to wear what they wear. You're going to be interested in what they're going to be interested in. Think about being, you know, like walking into the lunchroom at school when there's nobody to sit with. Of course, you're going to go, okay, whoever the fuck I sit with, if, you know, if they're emo, if they're goth, if they're into hip hop, like whatever, I'll be into it. No problem, you know? And I remember doing that so much of the time. I would go and just be interested in what they were interested in. And I think over time, I got so good at altering my personality to be so welcoming, so easy to talk to, because I can sense those cues of what makes people comfortable versus uncomfortable. And we all feel more comfortable when we feel a sense of similarity or connection, you know? And so I think I learned how to do that at a very young age, and it served me super well. Don't get me wrong. I am a great connector now, but something that I had to do a lot of work on was authenticity, because I got to that same point that you did and went, who the fuck am I? What fucking life am I living? Like, I'm getting wasted every weekend. I'm fucking shitting myself because my body doesn't want to do this anymore. I've got all these friends that kind of just feel like surface level friends, you know, like I'm doing this job that I actually don't like. And I got to that point and realized, fuck, even though people pleasing is a strategy that has got me to where I am, it's kept me safe, it's given me connections when I've needed it, it's now holding me back. It's now stopping me from finding out who I really am. And I feel like in your late teens and early 20s, that is your fucking time. Actually, probably your whole 20s, maybe your 30s, maybe your 40s, maybe your 50s, but something that's innate in human nature is constantly finding out more about yourself and who you are. And you get to that sort of stage where you want to figure that out and you want to feel more secure in yourself. And I just had no idea. And it took me so long to pinpoint that the people pleasing and the chameleoning and the, I had such an agreeable nature, if you will, the fake laugh, the everything, all of that was keeping me from being authentic and being who I am and finding my real tribe, right? Because it was all about belonging for me. Like the friendship that I have with Kelsey is amazing. It's so much more authentic. She's cool, than I've ever had with other friendships and relationships. Like Kelsey, if we would have met when I was 20, it would have looked a lot different,
Oh yeah.
And it wouldn't have been as authentic and as real and as vulnerable and as amazing as it is today. And you can't put a price on authenticity and authentic relationships and feeling like you know who you are. You fucking can't put a price on that, But the point that I want to drill in is that even though you think people pleasing is going to help you, be liked and feel good, and maybe it's going to dim your anxiety a bit, because I think that was a big deal for me too. It was a way to cope with anxiety when I was in new situations. It also was then creating more anxiety and creating more worry and creating more fear and more confusion and overwhelm, because you still aren't doing the work to figure out who you authentically are. And it hurts. I don't know about you, but my body manifested physical pain at not being true to myself. Like it physically hurt me to smile through it and to laugh at people's jokes and to be in relationships that I wasn't meant to be in. It started to physically hurt, and I didn't realize how much that had impacted me,
Yeah. Yeah, and it is a lot. It's a big weight, because you're taking on, like when you're people pleasing, you're also like taking on other people's energy. And that can even like drag you down in itself, because you have all these like emotions or beliefs or like behaviors that you've just learned that really pull you away from feeling good mentally and physically and emotionally. And I think when we're living an aligned life, when we're in a space where we love our life, love our friends, and we are true to ourselves, we feel really fucking good. Like if you're like, everything is going great, it's pretty far off that like you would be not living your life, surrounded by people you don't want to be friends with, like all of that stuff. Like you create how you feel based on the choices you make. And as I've gotten older and like set more boundaries and become myself and really like let go of the things that weren't serving me, like I've started to feel better physically. Like I think it's quite rare to say, as you get older, you feel better, but I have, because I've spent so much time and energy letting go of all the weight, the mental weight, the emotional weight, the physical weight that was tied to these experiences or places or things that I didn't actually like, that I was doing just because I felt like I had to. Once I let go of that stuff, I started feeling lighter, and that shows up in your whole life. Like when you start to become yourself and be who you want to be, you attract in, like you said, you attract in the people that are on that same vibration. Like say you wanted to date someone who was like really into hiking because hiking was your passion and you really wanted someone to hike with and build a life with. Would you start going out every weekend binge drinking in order to meet this person? Probably not, because a person that you want to build a life with that like wants to hike every weekend is not going to be at the bar at 3 a.m. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And it's the same with your whole life. Like in order to really step into who you are and attract in the people that you actually want to hang out with, you have to make the choices that you actually want to do, because the people that you want to hang out with will be making those choices too. Like we met during, like, you were my coach and I was really into self-development. You're clearly into self-development. And that's where a lot of my friendships are now like rooted in that, is that a similar passion of like wanting to like work on ourselves and have that support system to work through these things. And we wouldn't have met each other binge drinking and partying, like the things we used to do. There's nothing wrong with that if that's what you want. But when you're doing it for other people, you are sacrificing yourself, and you are sacrificing the time and the energy and the space that you could otherwise give to the people that are going to make you feel good, to the people that are going to support you through everything you do, to the people that you actually want like to grow old with and build memories with.
That's so fucking true. And like, it's not what you're doing, it's how you're doing it, right? It's the intention that you're doing it from. Like, there is nothing wrong with being a party gal, having a great time, if that's what you want and what feels good to you. But for me personally, I was just doing it to fit in and to gain approval from other people. There were so many times when I clearly did not want to do things and I did it anyway, you know, and that hurt and that impacted the trust that I had in myself. I think something that people pleasers struggle with massively is trusting themselves, because you're constantly, like you said, abandoning yourself over and over and over again, and abandoning your intuition that starts to reveal itself to you. And so often what happens is your intuition stops revealing itself to you, right? You've learned to bypass it so much that instead of having that little voice that says, oh, maybe I don't want to go and hang out with these people, or maybe I don't want to do this extra shift at work, or whatever it might be, instead of having that voice like you used to have, it gets quieter and quieter and quieter. And you start to, again, one, question who the fuck you really are. And you start to lose that sense of like intuition and knowing who you are. And I want to go on a side note here, because this is something that I'm navigating right now that I completely forgot that we could even talk about with this. But something that people pleasing, blah, everyone. Okay, I'm not even going to delete that out of the recording. Blah. Something that I've noticed, everyone knows I got daddy issues, big father wound, abandonment cycle there, but people pleasing with men has been a really big theme for me. Mainly because I just want their approval, and it's taken a long time for me to realize that those people are not my dad. And that sounds weird, but that's what it's been about for me. But as I've been going through this process of dating at 28, which very different to dating at 21, something that I massively notice, like a little unconscious pattern I can go into with certain people, is I'll stop being authentic and I'll start being smiley, agreeable, happy. And it actually happened on a date the other day when they made this really inappropriate, too far joke, which is very classic Australian to really stretch the lines of what is appropriate and not appropriate. And I smiled and I laughed. And then I walked away at the end of the day and I had such a bad, icky feeling. I was like, ugh, you know? And like immediately I was like, yeah, I'm not going on a second date. That does not feel good to me. But it is a pattern that I still struggle with from time to time. I'm really thankful that I notice it. But do you know what helped, Kelsey, so much was remember that post-date 8, those series of questions that I told you about to ask yourself after a date? So if anyone's dating and you're a people pleaser, you've got to get these questions because they're so helpful. But one of the questions is, what side of you did they bring out? And like, how does your body feel when you're around them? And I was like, ooh, you know, and I have gone on a couple of dates recently and I was able to sort of really compare them, where one date when I asked like what side of me did they bring out, it was like a very authentic, real, vulnerable, funny like side of myself where I just felt really secure. And then another person that I'd gone on a date with, I felt like I was more of that. Didn't help that I'd had 2 glasses of wine. That was a learning curve. But I felt more like smiley, silly 21-year-old me who was quite agreeable with everything and didn't really have much of an opinion about things. And it was really interesting to recognize that and to see it show up, you know? And so I want us to go into the next stage of this podcast, Kels, and start talking about how to stop people pleasing. And I feel like you're going to have some interesting takes, and so will I. And what I really appreciate is the fact that we're real different. So what I want to say here is, if you are a people pleaser, that you've got to find what works for you. You know, like what works for each of us doesn't really work for each other. You know, like we had to find our own ways, which I think is why it's good to give a few examples of what to focus on. So take what lands and leave the rest. Do you know what I mean? So Kelsey, what is your advice? How do I stop people pleasing?
I have 2 things that I really will advise. The first is start surrounding yourself with people that are actually doing what you want to do, because it is really, really, really hard to change when everyone else around you is still living the life that you don't want to live anymore. When I was in Queenstown, this looked like for me shutting everyone out of my life and having no friends for a period of time, because there was no one I was like really felt like was bringing out this new version of me. So I just shut everyone out until I could really evaluate and be like, wait, what am I actually looking for? What do I want in a friendship? Wasn't a great time, but it was something I needed to just take all the stimulation away, because when you have this like whole crowd of people around you or multiple friends, like there's so much overstimulation, and unless you quiet down that noise and give yourself a chance to just be separate from that, or have your own space, or be around people that are living a different life to see how you like it, then it is going to be really hard to change. So first thing is, start surrounding yourself with people that are living the life that you actually want to like, that you actually want to live, that you actually like, whatever combination of that. The second thing is start saying no. And this is a really fucking hard thing
how do
to
we do it if we don't want to say no? What do we do? How?
Right?
It's scary.
Saying no is a million times harder than saying yes, honestly, because that is the biggest fear of a people pleaser, is saying no. You don't want to say no. You're constantly pleasing people. And I know this is probably like not the advice that people love to hear, but truly it just takes time. Like saying no is a muscle that you exercise. You can't just start saying no to everything, start shutting everyone out, start saying no to every single thing that someone asks of you. You have to just start really small, like really, really small, to one, build up that trust that it's okay to say no, to also like evaluate, when I say no, will I be rejected? Will I be kicked out of the group? Like, will I be isolated? Oh, no, everyone usually just gets over it and starts, concerning themselves with their own life. And building that habit, like any habit you want to build, anything you want to learn, you're never going to be able to do it overnight. You have to slowly work it out, like a muscle, like a habit. Like just start really small with something that feels somewhat unsafe, but not overly unsafe. And just say no to like a dinner plan one time, or reschedule it, like sometimes even rescheduling it. Or for me, what was really helpful was having an excuse, like, oh, I'm actually not drinking because I'm doing a month sober. And that meant that people would just stop bothering me about drinking, because I had a reason to tell them, oh, I'm not drinking. And because usually people are like, why aren't you drinking? Just have one. Come on. Like it's this, this, and this. And you're like, fuck off. But when you say, oh, I'm just not drinking for a few months just to like see if I can do it, or like, oh, I'm not drinking because I'm training for something. Like I was the queen of excuses, because that made it easier for me to say no than just being like, no, I don't want to. I always had to have a reason, and that's okay. It's okay to have that crutch. Like at the end of the day, what's important is saying no. If you're saying no and telling a little bit of a white lie, like, oh, I've got a big call in the morning, sorry, I can't go out tonight. That's okay, The important thing is saying no, building up that trust, learning that it's okay to say no, and learning to put yourself first.
Damn. Yes. That is so, so good. And I remember one of the hacks that, again, is really similar but helped me massively. They say that a people pleaser's best friend is, let me get back to you. It is that phrase of just... Because people pleasing becomes an automatic behavior. It becomes like a go-to. It becomes a habit, right? To just say yes, or to, be agreeable, or to say whatever, do whatever it is. But having that little pause and saying like, hang on, let me just get back to you. It gives you the time, one, to think of an excuse if you need to. Two, to actually evaluate like what am I saying yes to and why am I saying yes, Because that's what we need. We need that time to think and evaluate, is this fully for someone else? Or is there also a part of me that wants to do this or to engage in this thing? And that's all you're trying to do. All you're trying to do is get in touch with that little muscle of intuition. You want that to come back online, because the louder that becomes, the more that you give space for it to speak, the easier it's going to be, right? Like when you have loud intuition, like Kelsey has very loud intuition now, I would say, right? So I feel like from observing Kelsey, it's actually really hard now for her to be a people pleaser, because her intuition is extremely loud, right? She's created a habit almost the opposite way, which is really cool. And one of the best ways to do that is to give yourself a bit of time, right? So to say, pause, hang on, let me get back to you. Give yourself some time to think about it. The two other things that I'm going to say are the weirdest things ever, but they are practical, actionable, and odd enough that they might just work. So give these two things a chance, okay? Go with me here, people pleasers. First one, send back a meal. When you get something you get your brunch and your eggs are scrambled, not poached, even though you asked for them to be poached. People pleaser in me goes, don't worry, it's totally fine. There's totally going to be milk in those scrambled eggs. I will shit myself tomorrow. I'll just pay the price. No worries, And we do it, and that's great, right? But part of this is practice. And one of the most challenging things for me was this. And I didn't realize how much anxiety it gave me to potentially be unagreeable, to make a bit of noise, to not be the easygoing gal, And this was a really great place for me to start. And it's something that I always admired in my friends. I have one friend in particular who, if she ever got something wrong, we would always look to her to be like, can you send this back for me? Such a powerful thing for you to be able to give that a go yourself, Super cool, very practical. And the other thing, again, very odd, but go with me here. Go to the movies by yourself, okay? Me and Kelsey now love a movie by ourselves. But
this is my favorite activity ever.
But why I'm saying this, look, dude, I used to think going to the movies by yourself was the biggest loser act you could possibly do, right? I thought my mum used to do it, and I used to go, that's so lame. Ew, that is disgusting. Like, what a loser. But what this does, people pleasing is about belonging and fitting in. And it's really driven to combat that feeling of loneliness and being on your own. So the advice or the exercise of go to the movies on your own, it's really just to get you to sit with a little bit of loneliness. It's to get you to sit with being by yourself, which unlearning people pleasing can sometimes come with a little bit of loneliness, because often you realize that some of your friendships and relationships are built on you saying yes to things that they want to do rather than what's really important to you. And so if there is a movie that you want to go see it on your own. Go and get a little bit uncomfortable and see what it's like. Go and get a whole tub of popcorn and just eat it to try and numb the loneliness if that's what you got to do. But just see what it's like to be and do this shit on your own, and realize that you're not going to die to go to the movies by yourself or to go out for brunch on your own. Like, you're not going to die. You're going to be okay. But to a people pleaser, that's often the worst idea in the world, that's often terrible. But those are the things that I specifically focused on. And I know they're really weird and really bizarre, but they were like little mini challenges that I set myself. And they actually really helped at a deeper level. And the third thing that I want to sort of stick and land on here that I think is so important as you stop people pleasing and you want to try and stop it, you have to increase your motivation to stop people pleasing. And by that, I mean you need to see what it's costing you. Because people pleasing, there is a big benefit to it, right? Like, life is going to be easy. People are going to like you. Everything's hopefully going to go smooth. You might be a little bit sad, but whatever. It's just you. You can get over it, But you need to see what this people pleasing is costing you. You need to see how painful it is to keep saying yes and to feel like you have to say yes, even though you're so exhausted and you just need a break, right? You need to see what the cost of people pleasing is. You need to see how painful it is to not know who you are. You need to bring that information into your eyes, into your vision. You need to become aware of it and bring it closer to you rather than continuing to push it away. So if you're here with us right now, something that you can do is literally just write down, notes app in your phone, or say it out loud. What is people pleasing costing me? Is it costing me from finding actual deep relationships? I know a lot of people pleasers don't feel good in their friendships. They kind of feel like insecure and always worried, and like sometimes they're a bit of a bitch, like they don't feel fully loved and held and seen and heard in those relationships. Imagine what that is holding you back from, when one door closes, another opens. And yes, the transition time is uncomfortable. I'm not going to lie to you, right, Kelsey? We're not going to lie about that. It is a bit uncomfortable and it can be a bit sucky from time to time, but the benefit will outweigh the cost over time. And you have to draw that straight in front of your face so that you see that every day, you know? What would you say people pleasing really cost you, Kelsey, if you can look at it?
Oh, yeah, it cost me like my health, specifically my mental health. And that's what I noticed the most is because like you said, my intuition is on at the moment. Like I have full-blown conversations with my intuition. It's great. But when I make a decision that is out of alignment for someone else, it drags me down like mentally for like well over a day where I feel the ramifications of it, because then it means I'm pushing my body, I'm pushing my energy in a way that it doesn't want to be moved. And I am sacrificing myself, the energy that I could have used to nurture and care for myself. I have just given it away to someone else, meaning that I have nothing left to give myself to like repair and replenish from that. And something I want to say that you just mentioned is, what is it costing you? Like, I think that is a beautiful question to ask yourself. And on top of that, like, what is my priority right now in life? Like, what do I want to prioritize? Is it your health? Is it saving money? Is it building good relationships? Is it your job? And using that as a motivator, well, like if it's your health, okay, well, I don't actually really want to go out drinking because I'm prioritizing my health right now. And I can see that when I go out drinking, it's costing me good sleep. It's breaking out like my skin, my stomach's all messed up. And asking yourself both of those questions as a combination of like, what am I sacrificing? That's like, how is this pulling me away from my goal? And also, what is my goal? So that way you have a really clear idea of what you want to work towards. And it makes it really easy to say, it makes it easier.
Thank you, Kelsey.
It easier to say no to those things. Let me just rewind. It makes it a little bit easier to say no to those things because you know what you're working towards and you know that this activity or this people-pleasing thing is pulling you away from that. So it's almost like common sense of like, oh, well, I want to save money. So no, I'm not going to go to this music festival for 5 days because everyone else is going to it, you know? What would you say?
Oh, just snaps to that. Snaps to all of that. That's it. And I almost don't want to overwhelm any people pleasers with any more information. I think it's pretty clear that people pleasing is something that does cost you a lot, and it's a learned behavior, right? It's something that we learn to emulate. We see it in the world. We see it in other people. You might even like to start to observe the people in your life that are engaging in people pleasing, people at work, people at daycare or wherever it is, but you might start to see some of that, and you might start to then recognize some of that in yourself and get clear on what it's about for you. You know, like for Kelsey, it was about that perfectionism, that being liked and protecting herself from pain. For me, it was about fitting in, belonging, being cool, getting approval, you know, and that father wound. Like, what is this behavior about for you? How is it serving you? What is it costing you? And what's your focus now that you're in this next stage of life that has brought you to even listen to this podcast in the first place? What is it that you really want? And how is people pleasing taking you away from that? How can you increase that motivation to change that behavior? And lastly, it's just getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. You know, like it is fucking terrifying to set a boundary. I have to say so, right? It's scary. It's hard to say no sometimes. But like Kelsey said, it's a muscle, right? And it's something that you've got to work at. And if it feels hard, it's meant to. It doesn't mean that you can't do it. It doesn't mean that you're doing it wrong. It is going to feel hard, right? Just like anything. The other point that I'm going to end it here because otherwise we're going to overwhelm you is, and this is something I personally did, I touched on it before, I sought out an expander. So I sought out and I hired a coach who, they triggered the shit out of me. There was definitely a part of me that sort of saw them as like an angry, aggressive woman, but there was also a part of me that saw them as incredibly powerful, and I admired them for being able to speak their truth and to be a little bit disruptive. And I went out and I hired that coach, and I got triggered over and over again, and it was hard, but it was really cool to see in real life that it's totally possible to say no, to put yourself first, and to have an amazing group of friends, deep relationships, a really cool life. it was like I needed to sort of draw that proof to my brain that it's possible to not be a people pleaser and to also still be liked and still have friends and still feel good. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's possible. So seeking an expander is another option for you as well, you know?
You were my expander.
No, really? That's so sweet.
Yeah, when I was in Queenstown, you were my expander. Yeah, and I'm just going to summarize what an expander is just someone who is real life evidence that the life you want to live is possible. So that could be an influencer, someone on like the television, like someone in real life, but just someone that you can see so that your brain knows, oh, this is the life. Like, I actually can create this life. It is possible.
That's it.
We'll leave it at that, because we've just fired through some like really great content. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. We've had a blast. We didn't even know what we were going to talk about coming into this, and it just came to us based on our experiences. So hope you guys have been able to relate and get some valuable information.
People
from it.
pleasers unite. We're stronger together. We're stronger together. Okay. There's no shame in this, there's no shame in people pleasing, and yeah, you can unlearn it. We would love to hear from you about how people pleasing shows up for you and what sort of core wound it's related to. So reach out to us on Instagram, on social media, or via email. All the links will be in the show notes. We'll also have the link there if you want to submit your what to do when question. If you have a topic that's coming to you and you're struggling with, we would love to support you through it. Otherwise, rate, review, share, subscribe, all those amazing things helps us grow the show. And we will see you next Monday. Thank you so much for listening. Oh, how do I stop? Oh, there.